Hello, everyone. My name is Caesar Williams. I am the artistic director of the Fire This Time Festival, and it is my joy and pleasure to say that the Fire This Time Festival, in conjunction with CTG and Watts Village Theater, have put together this program called Not a Moment, but a Movement to amplify and center Blackness in the theater. And we've done 2 episodes, but our 3rd episode is running now on CTG's digital stage through August 12th. So you can catch it, but to encourage you to catch it, I am delighted that we have the artistic brain trust of episode 3, which features Roger Q. Mason, our playwright, and our director, Taibi Magar, and their production of The Duat. Welcome, Roger and Taibi.
Thank you. Honored to be here.
Oh my goodness, what a pleasure and an honor. I am so excited to be in space with you all.
Yes.
Digital space, at least.
Digital space.
We're going to have to work on that and do something in person at some point.
Let me ask you, so I know you, Roger, through the Fire This Time Festival and your play Hard Palette. And last year we did an alumni spotlight where we took some of your work and just presented it for the world so they could see how glorious you are. And one of the pieces that we did just a 10-minute section of was the Duat.
Yes.
Is that your first time having a chance to work with Taibi?
When we did the alumni spotlight, yes, that was my first time working with Taibi. But what was so interesting about it was that we had such a common vocabulary artistically that it felt like we had been, doing shows on Broadway for 10 years, and we were just, switching it up to do this digital thing real quick, and we were going to be back in the theater in no time. There was just a familiarity and a shorthand that we possessed, which is unique in a relationship in the theater.
Yes. And Taibi, you are a theater director. What was it like for you working on the Duat the first time digitally?
Oh my gosh, it was like a quick masters in filmmaking, in which Roger was absolutely instrumental.
Yeah.
I had assisted on a movie once, but I really didn't understand the vocabulary that well, but Roger, for some reason, just decided I should do it anyway. And so Roger and I had a lot of meetings where we talked about what the cinematic possibilities were. I really feel like it was co-conceived together in terms of how it translated to film. And, it's been a season of making films. I think the short Duat was the first of now 5 projects in the pandemic that I've made in film. And I'm so thrilled that I had the Duat first, which was, it was like a 10-minute segment just to start to learn. And Roger's notes and thoughts were so helpful in helping me understand how it all gets put together. So I feel so lucky.
But you also taught me a lot too. I mean, I came into my filmic storyteller self while communicating notes on that alumni spotlight presentation of the piece, because I understood in that moment how naturally and how fluidly I was able to waft between television and theater and make the translations between the different vocabularies, but still keep the core dramaturgical question that I was asking through the work at the center of our dialogue. And so then I realized, oh, that's dangerous.
Yeah.
That's dangerous to be able to, but glorious at the same time, to be able to have the ability to know that story is story. And you just have to be a little bit of a shapeshifter in terms of how you hone one medium versus the other to tell the story. But your goal is always the same, which is to touch the human spirit.
Yes. Let's talk a little bit about the Duat. What were those first conversations like in terms of the themes you're trying to get forward, what you wanted to communicate, things like that?
Well, the Center Theater Group production actually made me step my game up a lot, because I walked into the Kirk Douglas Theatre knowing that this production was going to change me in some way just because of the thrill of the occasion.
Mm-hmm.
This was my regional theater debut. And I knew that I wanted to show my best stuff because we in the big house now. And I wanted to be my best self for this audience because they deserve the best. And so as Taibi and I were thinking about what changes to make, this theme of the road from self-hate to self-love became a more dominant theme than I originally conceived in my other versions of the play. The play was sort of about an outsider who takes revenge against the community that ostracizes him. But what I realized was the deeper underpinnings of that is that he was actually looking to be loved and affirmed.
Mm.
And that more subterranean thematic investigation had a lot more dimension to it. Yes, there's great power in telling an anti-hero story, sure. And that was where I started with this. It was an anti-hero story. But then where I ended up really reached for the stars, quite literally, because we were looking at how does this man find redemption, And his road to redemption was through finding and earning self-love. Yeah. Those segments that highlighted that theme were the elements that we brought into this production that made it, I think, the enhanced experience that we were blessed to share with CTG's audience here.
Yeah. What do you think, Taibi? I mean, what was your experience?
Yeah, I mean, I so often have to force myself to read a play. Actually, as a director, it's like funny that I ended up in this because it actually takes a lot for me to read a play, and I don't particularly love reading them. But the Duat came across, and I opened it thinking, well, I'm probably not going to like this because I don't tend to love a lot of things. But I fell absolutely in love with it, and read it, in a very short amount of time, which is uncharacteristic of me. And I really loved it, and working on it with the beautiful Fire This Time Festival was incredible. But there was something about the CTG experience where I'd be remiss if I didn't mention Gregg Daniel's profound dramaturgical influence and performative influence. He's our actor, for those of you watching, who, it's only once you really lift up the hood and start to really get into the text and really start to dig around that you start to notice the pattern and the structure of what's emerging. And I feel like Roger was so open inside of that process in terms of hearing what Gregg and I were wrestling with. And I feel like out of that, Roger just created this a whole other level to the script that is, and I want to say, I feel like, I don't know if it was deeply connected to the last year of the pandemic, both the virus and our profound necessary social reckoning, but around the legacy of racism in America. But I feel like we sort of needed to arrive there. I don't know if maybe it was just how we were all feeling and what the stories that need to be told right now, especially in the Black community. I feel like, I wonder if that was in the air for you, Roger. I feel like that was.
It was, to quote Queen Mother, RuPaul, if you can't love yourself, how the hell you gonna love somebody else?
Word.
And we were looking at, first of all, it also should be said that Gregg is also a director in addition to an actor. So he was coming from a very interdisciplinary place and diplomatically so. But there were segments where he would notice that there was room for enhancement or change or augmentation. And we took all of those notes. There weren't that many, but then those little incisions opened up a lot of things. One of the things, without giving a spoiler alert, is we have a little bit of a serpentine character in the piece. Every religious tale has to have some kind of snake. Yes. Yeah. And her name is Cindy. And Cindy, so when you guys watch it, because you will, when you, if you want, but when you watch the play, you'll see this character Cindy, which has sort of a 3 or 4 part arc, depending on how you're counting, there was only one scene with her in the previous version of the script, but she became the linchpin for the thematic blossoming of the play. And she became the key to how we would unlock the road from self-hate to self-love. Because one of the big themes that we identified this time around was that the play centered on a transgenerational dependence on white approval for Black greatness.
Yes.
The play, at the core of the play, is a series of generations of Black men that depend on white folks, particularly in this case, white women, for sexual and civic and ultimately spiritual affirmation. And what we were looking at was, you don't need nobody.
Yeah.
You need to love yourself first. And that's really where we started. And we identified that pretty early on with Gregg. And then it was a matter of just how do you manifest that on the page. And I think actually in this social revolution, what we're learning is, how do we build community, and how do we build cities of love?
Yeah, Tyrone had put together for the opening panel of episode 3 of Not a Moment, But a Movement, the Duat. It had Dominique Morisseau, Azure, Jonathan McCrory, but I think it was Jonathan McCrory talked about that same concept of, he used to have a pen that said Black exceptionalism. And he wore it proudly, he wore it everywhere. And he said within the last year, he took the pen off because he realized that it didn't mean the same thing to everybody, because to a lot of people, it meant, how exceptional do white people think you are, defines how exceptional you are as a Black person. So who's making this determination of what's exceptional and what is the rubric that they're using? And so I think that is spot on. And I was so thrilled when I could see that change of basically going from self-hate to self-love. That's the journey we should go on. But speaking of textures, Taibi, we were able to add in a percussionist. We had the incredible David Leach in this production of it. How did that change, enhance, inhibit? What was the impact of David being in the project? Because we think of it as a solo show with Gregg, but I never speak about it that way. I think of it as a two-hander between Gregg and David.
Yeah, agree. I mean, a special shout out to Tyrone for getting us the resources to make that happen, because I sort of couldn't imagine the play without that. I mean, Roger had written it in, and it was, and also the choreography by the incredible Michael Tomlin.
My goodness. Oh, that was so beautiful. And I have to tell you, to see Gregg move like that, I was blown away.
Coast to coast, people have been shook by that. People are like, what?
So every production that I've done, I try to add live music and dance at every juncture possible. I have no particularly rational reason for it, except that I love it, except that I love that theater can be the intersection of all of these things, all of the different art forms. I think that's sort of the why I love theater, is because it does all the visual art things, it does all the musical things, it can do all the dance things. So the drum for me, feels like the manifestation of, this Duat god, this Egyptian god that he's negotiating. So it felt like the play would be rather empty without that manifestation. And I feel like drums, I'm such a sucker for a drum line. Like drums, I feel like they do something to your body, right? I mean, they feel like they're ancient. I actually would love to talk to a musicologist about why, but drums wake me up. They cause me to lean forward, and they feel like they have a profound way of working on the imagination. And so it felt super necessary to have David Leach there, who, like, what a dream that we got to have that incredible artist. Only a pandemic would mean that artist was available, to us. And then we had the incredible Michael Tomlin, who also, thank you to Tyrone for giving us this incredible human that just created this incredible layer of theatricality that we were able to unlock. And, we only rehearsed for, I guess, live in person for a week, really. Right. But it felt necessary in order to bring Roger's piece to the heights that it needed to be, and I feel like just bravo to CTG for allowing that to happen, because the piece, I don't think the piece could have sung really. You wouldn't be able to feel the depths if you didn't get to experience all of that.
That was
Well,
my
it's a fire dance, and it's a piece that has a very kinetic relationship to movement and music on purpose, because music and movement are the unspoken. They are the sublime in the piece. And one thing that I always do in a play is I have to have some element of the sublime, because I believe that through this work, this mighty, holy work, we are touching the spirit.
Yes.
And for this particular piece, the way we did it was through the drum and through the relationship to movement. These elements of his story, Neil's story, the protagonist, that were so painful or so blissful that they could not be expressed through language. What we had was his body.
Yeah. Thank you both for this artist-to-artist conversation. I really encourage everyone, please watch the Duat. Just see the brilliance of these two artists and all the other artists who are working with them, and uplift their stories, center their work, and just spread the word about the good work that they are doing. And thank you. And I'm so grateful to CTG and Watts Village Theater, Bruce Lemon, Kelly Gerard, but most importantly, my dear friend, Tyrone Davis, who is the light and beacon of theater in the West Coast, especially.
Tyrone has ensured that we are not just a moment, but a movement. And we can't say enough about how important it is for him to be continuing the good social and artistic work of giving opportunities to Black artists. And to our audiences, we must say that we do this for you. We do this to move your spirit. And we love you madly. And we are so excited for the chance to share this piece with you in the Center Theater Group's digital stage.
Yes. Now through August 12th. Goodbye.
Where am I? Had me on some boat. A long boat floating. A full boat floating. Okay, that's it. That's it. I can't take this no more. Oh, shit. Y'all got me in the Duat. Damn.